Imagine a world so vast, so ancient, and so mysterious that most of it still lies hidden beneath the waves. A lost continent, forgotten by history, drowned in silence, stretching thousands of kilometers across the South Pacific. Scientists call it Zealandia. Most of us call it missing. Yet here's the shock, it's real. Right now, under the waters east of Australia, lies the world's hidden eighth continent. And tonight, you and I are going to explore it together. Welcome to World's Echoes, where we uncover the secrets that shape our planet and echo across time. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the journeys that take us beyond the edges of the known world. When you look at a globe, continents seem simple enough. There's Africa, vast and ancient, the cradle of humanity. There's Asia, stretching endlessly with mountains and deserts. Europe, compact but dense with history. North and South America, flanked by oceans. Australia, an island continent all on its own. And Antarctica, frozen and desolate. 6? No, 7. That's what we've always been told. But what if I told you that Earth is hiding an eighth? A continent so immense it rivals India in size, yet so secret that most people alive today have never even heard its name. How can something so big remain invisible? And what stories does it hold in its submerged bones of stone and coral? To understand Zealandia, we first need to travel back in time. Picture the world 85 million years ago. Dinosaurs still thundered across the land, pterosaurs still ruled the skies, and lush forests covered continents in ways we can barely imagine today. The Earth was not yet carved into the shapes we see now. Instead, massive supercontinents ruled the map, first Pangaea, then Gondwana. And tucked into Gondwana's southern embrace was a chunk of land that would one day drift apart, fragment, and sink. That land was Zealandia. But Zealandia wasn't just some random geological scrap. It was huge. Nearly 5 million square kilometers, about two-thirds the size of Australia. To put it into perspective, that's larger than India, larger than Greenland, and much, much larger than most places we'd ever think to call an island. By any logical measure, Zealandia deserves the title of continent. It has its own geology, its own thick crust, its own natural boundaries. And yet, 94% of it is underwater. Only the tips of its mountains break the surface today, and those tips are what we call New Zealand. The beautiful landscapes of Auckland, the fjords of Milford Sound, the Southern Alps, they're not just islands. They're mountaintops of a sunken continent. So why don't we learn about Zealandia in school? Why isn't it colored on maps in bold like Africa or Asia? The answer is as strange as the continent itself. Because it's hidden. For millions of years, Zealandia slipped beneath the sea, its valleys drowned, its plateaus smothered in darkness. The world simply forgot it was ever there. To most people, New Zealand seemed like an isolated island nation floating alone in the Pacific. But in reality, it's just the highest balcony of a grand palace that collapsed under the waves. The story of Zealandia's rediscovery begins in fragments, scientists collecting clues from the ocean floor, from rocks, from the whispers of ancient volcanoes. The first hints came from geologists mapping the seabed. They noticed ridges, plateaus, and submerged mountain chains stretching far beyond New Zealand's shores. At first, they thought these were scattered anomalies. But piece by piece, a picture emerged. By the late 20th century, whispers of a hidden continent began circulating among geologists. Yet it wasn't until 2017, yes, that recently, that scientists formally declared Zealandia to be Earth's eighth continent. Think about that. We live in an age of satellites and space travel, and only in 2017 did we confirm the existence of an entire continent on our own planet. How many other secrets might the Earth still be hiding? Imagine sailing across the South Pacific, the water an endless sheet of blue. Beneath your boat lies not just deep ocean, but an entire drowned landmass. Once, it had forests. Rivers carved through valleys. Dinosaurs may have grazed there. Now, it's a realm of silence and pressure, cloaked in darkness. Only its peaks pierce the surface, lush and green with life. This isn't some lost myth like Atlantis. This is real. Zealandia isn't a legend, it's a scientific fact. And yet, it feels like stepping into a legend every time we speak its name. When Zealandia began to sink, it didn't happen overnight. For tens of millions of years, tectonic forces stretched and pulled it apart, thinning its crust, lowering it into the sea. Slowly, silently, it slipped beneath the waves, until only fragments remained above water. New Caledonia, the Lord Howe Rise, and New Zealand itself. Imagine living in that world, watching your homeland gradually vanish beneath rising seas, not in a human lifetime, but over geological ages. The Earth is patient. Continents rise and fall like slow breaths. And Zealandia's breath was pulled under. But here's the remarkable part, because Zealandia sank, it became a time capsule. While continents above sea level are constantly eroded, reshaped, and built over by humans, Zealandia's hidden valleys have been preserved under the ocean. Its sediments still hold fossils of ancient creatures. Its rocks still carry the scars of supercontinents breaking apart. To study Zealandia is to peer back in time, to touch a history almost untouched. And maybe that's why its story resonates so deeply with us. It's not just about science. It's about wonder. About realizing that even today, in the 21st century, our maps aren't finished. Our planet is still revealing itself to us. And in Zealandia's drowned mountains, we see a reflection of human curiosity. How much is still out there, waiting, hidden in plain sight? When we talk about continents, most people imagine them as simple puzzle pieces drifting across the ocean, but the truth is far more complicated. Continents are like living creatures. They grow, they fracture, they migrate, and sometimes they even die. Zealandia is proof of that. To understand why it exists, we need to understand the restless heart of our planet, the tectonic plates. Picture the Earth not as a static globe but as a cracked shell, broken into plates the size of nations and oceans, all sliding slowly on a sea of molten rock. These plates collide, pull apart, and grind past each other in a never-ending, violent dance. Mountains rise when plates crash together, valleys open when they drift apart, and volcanoes roar when molten rock forces its way through. For Zealandia, this story began when it was still welded to the massive southern supercontinent Gondwana. Gondwana itself was colossal. Imagine a world map where South America, Africa, Antarctica, India, Australia, and Zealandia were all fused together as one gigantic landmass. That was Gondwana. For millions of years it flourished, home to forests, rivers, and an astonishing variety of life. Dinosaurs walked its plains. Giant ferns shaded its valleys. It seemed eternal. But nothing on Earth stays still forever. Around 85 million years ago, rifts began to tear through Gondwana's crust, splitting it apart like cracks running across ice. Zealandia began to drift away. Here's where the story takes an unusual turn. When most continents break off, they remain thick and buoyant, able to float above sea level. But Zealandia was different. Its crust was thinner, stretched like dough pulled too far. Slowly, the landmass sagged. Rivers filled with seawater. Valleys turned to bays. Plains slipped beneath the waves. Bit by bit, the continent disappeared. By 23 million years ago, most of it was gone, leaving behind only scattered mountaintops like New Zealand. In geological time, Zealandia drowned quietly, almost unnoticed. And yet, traces of its life above water still remain. Fossils pulled from its rocks reveal ferns, cycads, and even dinosaurs that once roamed the land. Imagine enormous sauropods grazing in what is now the seabed of the Tasman Sea. Imagine small bird-like raptors darting between trees where today only fish swim. In New Zealand, paleontologists still discover echoes of this past, the bones of mosasaurs, giant flightless birds, and creatures unlike anywhere else. These aren't accidents. They're whispers from the larger body of Zealandia, reminders of the world that existed before the sea claimed it. When scientists proposed Zealandia as a continent, they didn't do so lightly. A continent isn't just a big piece of land. To earn the title, it needs 4 things. It must be elevated compared to the surrounding ocean floor, it must have distinct geology and thicker crust, it must be large enough, and it must have clear boundaries. Zealandia checks every box. Its crust is thicker than the oceans. Its boundaries are clear where it meets the deep Pacific basins. And its size? At nearly 5 million square kilometers, it dwarfs many countries and rivals established continents. So why, then, did it take until 2017 to recognize it? The answer lies in perception. Because Zealandia is mostly underwater, it doesn't look like a continent to the naked eye. Maps show nothing but ocean where its plains lie. To claim something that vast without seeing it feels almost impossible. But technology changed the game. Satellites measured gravity across the ocean. Sonar mapped the seafloor. Drills brought up cores of rock and sediment. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. Scientists could see ridges, plateaus, mountain chains, and continental crust where only ocean was supposed to be. It was undeniable. The world had an eighth continent. Now think about what that means. For centuries, humanity has dreamed of lost lands: Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu. Myths of sunken continents have haunted our imaginations. And here we are, in the 21st century, staring at a real one. Zealandia is not Atlantis, but the sense of wonder is the same. We thought the map was complete. We thought Earth had no more secrets left on this scale. And yet, beneath the waves, an entire continent waited patiently for us to notice. But Zealandia's story doesn't end with its discovery. In fact, the mystery deepens. Because buried within its drowned valleys may be resources, ecosystems, and histories we have barely begun to touch. What kind of life thrives in its hidden environments? What secrets do its rocks hold about the ancient supercontinent Gondwana? Could its fossil record change what we know about evolution? And here's a thought: what would New Zealand look like today if Zealandia had never sunk? Instead of 2 islands in the Pacific, we might have a continent stretching thousands of kilometers, with vast plains, deserts, mountains, and forests. The world's map would look entirely different. Every discovery about Zealandia sparks new questions. For example, scientists debate whether parts of it once connected species between South America and Australia. Did Zealandia act as a bridge for dinosaurs and plants to migrate across Gondwana before it broke apart? If so, its role in Earth's history is even more significant than we realize. It wasn't just a forgotten landmass. It was a highway of life. Today, geologists study Zealandia with ships, drills, and robots, trying to piece together its drowned puzzle. In 2017, an international team drilled deep into its seabed, pulling up cores of rock from hundreds of meters below. Inside those rocks were microfossils, tiny remains of plants and organisms that once lived on land. That was the proof. Zealandia had not always been underwater. Once, it had been green, fertile, alive. The evidence was right there in their hands. And yet, despite this groundbreaking science, most people in the world have never heard of Zealandia. If you ask a stranger to name the continents, they'll list 7. Hardly anyone will say 8. It's almost as if Zealandia is still hiding, not beneath the sea this time, but in our collective memory. That's why stories like this matter. That's why we tell them. Because knowledge is only as powerful as our willingness to share it. I want you to pause for a moment and imagine standing on the coast of New Zealand, staring out at the endless Pacific. Beneath those waves lies not just empty ocean, but mountains, valleys, and plains of a drowned continent. It's a place as real as Europe, as vast as India, yet invisible to the human eye. Does that not change the way you look at the horizon? When we think of the sea, we think of emptiness. But beneath the surface, entire worlds wait for us. And here's something I'd like to ask you directly, because your perspective matters. If Zealandia had never sunk, if it still stood tall above the waves today, do you think the course of human history would be different? Would we have seen new civilizations rise on its plains? Would it have changed trade, migration, even the balance of power in our world? Let me know what you think in the comments, because I'd love to hear how you imagine a world with 8 visible continents. The strange thing about discovery is that it never really ends. The moment we confirm something exists, 1,000 more questions open up. That's exactly what happened with Zealandia. Declaring it a continent wasn't the finish line. It was the starting gun for one of the greatest scientific explorations of our time. Because now, scientists weren't just asking if Zealandia was real. They were asking, what's really down there? To uncover the answers, modern explorers turned to some of the most advanced tools humanity has ever built. Ships equipped with sonar to map the hidden ridges and trenches. Robots able to dive deep, collecting images from the lightless ocean floor. Drills boring hundreds of meters below the seabed, pulling up cores that read like diaries of ancient Earth. Every layer of sediment, every fossilized shell, every grain of sand told a story about Zealandia's past. And the more they studied, the stranger the story became. For one thing, Zealandia's crust isn't uniform. Some areas are continental rock, thick and buoyant, but other areas are stretched thin, almost oceanic. It's as if the continent was torn apart mid-birth, never given the same chance as Africa or Asia to rise high above the sea. This patchwork geology is part of why it slipped beneath the waves. It's also why scientists find it so fascinating. To study Zealandia is to study the boundaries of what makes a continent in the first place. And here's something that will surprise you: even though Zealandia is almost entirely underwater, it's still geologically alive. Earthquakes ripple through its hidden faults. Volcanoes dot its submerged plateaus. The entire region sits on the edge of the Pacific Ring of Fire, one of the most violent and dynamic tectonic zones in the world. New Zealand itself is proof of this, a land shaped by eruptions, earthquakes, and rising mountains. Those mountains are the visible evidence of Zealandia's restless heart, beating below the waves. But it isn't just geology that excites scientists. It's biology too. Because if Zealandia was once above sea level, it may have been a cradle for unique lifeforms, plants and animals that evolved in isolation, just as species did on Madagascar or Australia. Some of those species' descendants may still survive on the islands that remain above water. Others may lie buried as fossils, waiting to be discovered. And then there's the question of what thrives in its drowned valleys today. Hydrothermal vents, strange deep-sea ecosystems, and species no human has ever seen could be hiding down there. The ocean keeps its secrets well. Think about it, we've mapped Mars more thoroughly than our own seabeds. We know more about the surface of the moon than the mountains and plains beneath the Pacific Ocean. And somewhere in that vast blue desert lies Zealandia, hiding in plain sight. It almost feels like the Earth is teasing us, reminding us how little we truly know. There's also a more practical side to this discovery. Zealandia could be rich in natural resources, minerals, gas, even rare earth elements. Some countries already eye its submerged ridges with interest. But that raises ethical questions too. Should humanity rush to exploit this hidden continent the moment we recognize it? Or should we treat it as a protected frontier, a reminder that not everything must be mined and consumed? These debates are only just beginning, and they add a new layer of tension to the story. And yet, for all its scientific and political importance, Zealandia has something even more powerful: imagination. For centuries, people have told stories of lost lands. Atlantis, swallowed by the sea. Lemuria, stretching across the Indian Ocean. Mu, the Pacific's mythical paradise. Most of these were fables, dreams of explorers or philosophers. But Zealandia is real. A lost continent that truly sank. It gives those old myths a heartbeat again. When we say Zealandia, we're not just naming a geological plate. We're whispering a story that echoes through all of human history, that the Earth holds mysteries still beyond our grasp. And I want to pause here to say this: if you're enjoying this journey into the hidden eighth continent, make sure you're subscribed to World's Echoes. This channel is where we take the forgotten, the mysterious, and the awe-inspiring, and we bring them back to life. Subscribing not only keeps you connected, it ensures you won't miss the next voyage into the unknown. Because if Zealandia has taught us anything, it's that the world is far bigger, stranger, and more beautiful than we've been led to believe. Now, let's step back in time again, farther than humans, farther than even mammals, all the way to the age of dinosaurs. Imagine Zealandia when it still towered above the sea. Rivers ran down its valleys, carving their way to broad coasts. Vast forests of conifers and ferns stretched across its plains. Creatures roamed that today feel like science fiction. Massive sauropods lumbered through the undergrowth. Mosasaurs patrolled its seas. Early birds flapped awkwardly from branch to branch. If you could stand there then, it would feel both alien and familiar, a lost world in the truest sense. And then, slowly, everything began to change. Volcanoes reshaped the land. Earthquakes cracked the crust. Gondwana tore apart, pulling Zealandia into isolation. As the land sagged, seas crept in. Imagine watching hills turn into islands, valleys into bays, forests into drowned woodlands. Over millions of years, what was once a thriving continent transformed into a shattered archipelago. And finally, most of it slipped under for good. The dinosaurs never saw the end. By the time humans arrived in New Zealand thousands of years ago, the continent had been gone for tens of millions. All they saw were the peaks, the islands that remain today. And yet, those islands tell the story. New Zealand's landscapes are a glimpse into the bones of Zealandia. The southern Alps, rising like jagged teeth. The fjords of the South Island, carved by glaciers. The strange flightless birds like the kiwi and the extinct moa creatures found nowhere else on Earth. These aren't accidents. They're echoes of a continent that shaped evolution in isolation. Zealandia may be hidden, but its fingerprints are everywhere. The deeper scientists dig, the more they uncover connections. Fossils of plants that match those in South America. Geological formations that line up with Australia. Evidence that Zealandia was once the bridge, the missing link between worlds. When it sank, that bridge was cut. Species were trapped, isolated. And evolution did the rest, sculpting life into forms unique to this lost land. That's why New Zealand today feels like a place out of time, because it's a remnant of a continent most of us never knew existed. And perhaps that's the most astonishing part of this whole story. For centuries, people have looked at New Zealand and seen only islands, remote and solitary. But in reality, those islands are mountaintops. They're fragments of a drowned empire of stone and forest. They're survivors of one of Earth's greatest transformations. And now, in the 21st century, we're only beginning to realize the magnitude of what was lost. Zealandia is a reminder of how fragile continents are. We think of land as eternal, but it isn't. It rises. It falls. It disappears. In another 100 million years, who knows what parts of our world will sink, or what new lands will emerge from the ocean? Maybe, one day, future explorers will talk about the missing continent of Africa or the drowned plains of North America. Nothing on this planet is permanent. But in Zealandia, we have a gift. A chance to look back, to see the story written in stone and water, to realize that our maps are never final. And as long as there are places like this, hidden and waiting, the spirit of discovery will never die. Beneath the waves, Zealandia is a world almost frozen in time, carrying stories that go back millions of years. Imagine landmasses drifting apart like slow-moving puzzle pieces, the forces of plate tectonics gently but relentlessly pulling them away from one another. Zealandia once stood tall, connected to the mighty supercontinent Gondwana, alongside Antarctica, South America, Africa, India, and Australia. But over tens of millions of years, the Earth's crust shifted, stretched, and thinned, and Zealandia began to sink into the ocean. Today, only the tips of its highest peaks remain above water, forming New Zealand and New Caledonia. It's almost like nature's magic trick, a continent hiding in plain sight, and for the longest time, we didn't even notice. What makes Zealandia so fascinating is not just that it exists, but that it challenges how we even define a continent. For centuries, the idea of continents seemed fixed, 7 vast landmasses with clear borders. But Zealandia doesn't fit neatly into this picture. It's 93% submerged beneath the Pacific Ocean, stretching across 5 million square kilometers, about 2/3 the size of Australia. By every geological standard, thickness of the crust, well-defined area, and separation from other continents, Zealandia qualifies as Earth's hidden 8th continent. And yet, most maps still leave it out. It makes you wonder, what else are we missing about our planet? Picture the lives of early sailors and explorers who crossed the Pacific, seeing scattered islands rising from the sea, never realizing they were walking on the mountaintops of a massive, sunken continent. Generations of humans looked at these islands as isolated specks in the vast ocean, while beneath them stretched an entire landmass waiting to be discovered. Only in recent decades, with advanced mapping and satellite imaging, did scientists begin to stitch the puzzle together, revealing the astonishing truth. And here's something that feels almost poetic: Zealandia is not just a forgotten piece of land, it's a living laboratory. Beneath its waves lie clues about Earth's ancient climate, the breakup of Gondwana, and even the survival of species that drifted into isolation when the land sank. Scientists drilling into the seabed have uncovered fossils and sediments that tell stories of a time when Zealandia stood above the ocean, covered in lush forests and teeming with life. Imagine dinosaurs roaming across its valleys, rivers cutting through fertile plains, and unique plants and animals evolving in ways we may never fully grasp. It almost feels like a world lost to myth, like Atlantis, but this isn't a legend. This is real, hidden beneath our feet, reshaping how we see the very definition of a continent. And the more you think about it, the more humbling it becomes. Our planet still has secrets, still hides chapters of its story in places we can barely reach. Over 70 million years ago, Zealandia was not hidden, not submerged, but alive and sprawling. Forests covered its hills, rivers carved its valleys, and giant creatures roamed freely across its plains. But the slow, unstoppable movement of tectonic plates was already setting the stage for its disappearance. As the supercontinent Gondwana began to fracture, Zealandia was pulled away, stretching and thinning like dough being slowly pulled apart. Over millions of years, the landmass became too thin to remain fully above sea level. The ocean crept in, swallowing valley after valley, until only the highest peaks were left standing. What we see today as New Zealand and New Caledonia are just the last breath of a continent that mostly slipped beneath the Pacific waves. But here's what's truly astonishing: Zealandia never really vanished. It has been right here, beneath us, all along. It simply escaped notice because it was drowned, its features hidden under kilometers of water. It wasn't until modern sonar mapping, satellite imaging, and geological surveys came together that scientists could outline its borders, finally confirming what it truly is, the world's eighth continent. And the moment that truth was revealed, our picture of the Earth changed forever. Think about it: when you were a child, you were probably told there are 7 continents. But now, science shows us that there is another, vast and hidden, shaping our world in silence. It challenges us to rethink what we know, to accept that even in the 21st century, when we feel like we've charted every corner of Earth, there are still grand discoveries waiting for us. Zealandia is a reminder that Earth is not finished telling its story. Beneath the oceans lie secrets about ancient climates, ecosystems long lost, and the forces that built the world we live on today. Every drill into its seabed, every fossil uncovered, brings us closer to understanding not only Zealandia's past, but also our planet's future. Because the more we learn about how continents rise and fall, the better we understand the fragile balance of our world. And maybe, just maybe, the existence of a missing continent stirs something deeper in us. A reminder that wonder still exists, that mystery is not gone, and that our world is more extraordinary than we often realize. It tells us that exploration is not just about space, but also about rediscovering the Earth beneath our feet and the oceans that conceal its greatest secrets. So the next time you look at a map, remember that there's a vast hidden land under the Pacific Ocean, stretching across 5 million square kilometers, waiting to be acknowledged. Zealandia, the missing continent, the silent 8th chapter in the story of our world. If this journey into Earth's hidden heart fascinated you, then let's keep exploring together. Like this video, share it with others who love uncovering the mysteries of our planet, and don't forget to subscribe to World's Echoes. Because here, we'll always dive deep into the wonders that shape our world and echo across time.